Evening members, and also I've got good evening members, and welcome to members of the public who are here, and residents who are viewing on YouTube. So I'm just to advise you all that the meeting is being live streamed to YouTube in its entirety, and I ask you all to bear that in mind as we go through the meeting. Apologies for absence. We've got Councillor David Gray. I think we're a full complement apart from that. Yeah. Oh, yes, proposed and seconded for his absence, because then he's somewhere in high temperature. Councillor. And Councillor Crooks. Right. All those in favour, please show.
I'm disappointed that my normal fencing partner is not here.
Well,
You're arrested.
I'm very sorry about
I abstain.
that. We'll send him an email and tell him. Okay.
He's missed.
Oh, yes, he will be missed. Declarations of interest. Anybody have a declaration of interest in tonight's agenda? It doesn't look like it.
Just Chair, no dispensations have been received.
No dispensation have been received. Minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 15th of March. I need a proposal and a seconder, please, that agree the minutes of the last meeting held on the 15th of March as a true and accurate record, and that may be signed as such. So what they can, so like that. Thank you very much. Those in favour, please go.
Is unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. And I will sign them in due course. Oh, Councillors, questions? Any councillors got a question, either on the back benches or at the meeting? Oh, yes, councillor.
I've got a question. My local school running their school fete, and they've managed to get sponsorship from Domus to put up billboards around the area to advertise the school fete. So they phoned up Weymouth Town Council and asked if they could put one up by the Lookout Cafe, because it's Weymouth Town Council. And they were told no, because it's going to have a little Domus on the bottom and it's advertising. And I thought, well, that's pretty poor. I'd just like to, if any other councillors have got any opinions on it.
Obviously not.
No. So I was bitterly disappointed.
Well,
Us as a local council, we can't allow for 2 weeks to have a little billboard put up. And I'm a bit disappointed.
Councillor Weller now.
I understand exactly what you're saying. It's just that we've thought long and hard about our advertising policies. And, you know, a lot of the estate agents do sponsor various things, WOW and the musical events and so on. And they generally put their boards on you know, people's private lands. They generally go to people who recently sold their houses and so on. I personally, although I understand exactly where you're coming from when it is a school event, personally think that we shouldn't be deviating, because once we start deviating once, it's a slow burn, isn't it? And suddenly the policy doesn't mean anything at all. That's my view.
Thank you, Councillor Lake.
Thank you very much. It's a bit difficult to answer this when we haven't had any notice of it, and I would have liked to have thought about it beforehand. But off the top of my head, there is some commercial aspect in this, even though it might be small. And if the organisation had wanted to put up their own advert, just referring to their own function, I would have said, yeah, that's no problem. But because of this commercial link, I'm not saying it's no problem, but I'm not saying it's a problem either. I'm just not sure at this stage. And I'd like to go back and see what precedents like for one thing and what our policy is for another. So I think it'd be wrong to criticise the council for saying no, because they might in the outturn be correct to say so.
Thank you for that. Town clerk, have you anything to say or give a reply?
It'd be useful, Chair, just to know who you spoke to, Councillor Dickinson's in the office.
I'll find out.
Yeah, neither Ian nor myself have any prior knowledge of this.
No,
So again, if you want to drop us an email.
I just wanted to know what the opinions were of fellow councillors, that's all.
Okay, thank you. I think you've probably got the gist, but even though it's a small advert, it is commercial. We have to be careful about that. That's the hope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering, to show goodwill, whether or not the comms team could share the school page just on its social media, just to show that we do support these sort of things. And offer that to any schools, just to say, local event going on in the community. That way we are showing support. But, you know, Councillor Dickinson was there when we did vote on the marketing policy, and it is outlined within the marketing policy. So, you know, I think that discussion, your questions really due when we review the policy next time round.
Thank you. That sounds a good idea. So, do we have any questions from members of the public? Either here or sent in? No? We move on to item 7, an amendment to the grant application form, which the town clerk is going to lead up.
Sorry, Chair, just struggling to locate my notes for the meeting. Thank you. Members will recall that we annually have a little look at our application form, how it's structured, just to make sure it's still fit for purpose and that everything that members want to know about in grant applications is included in the form. Following the small community grants for the King's coronation, we were asked to include a question on how applicants will be making their events or their projects as environmentally friendly as possible. Not only to look at reducing the impact on the environment, so reducing the amount of single-use plastics, sustainable travel, encouraging walking and using bicycles to access events, but also whether the event itself will have any intrinsic benefit to the environment. In the past, members have sponsored crabline recycling and the reef bricks, which obviously have really good environmental benefits, but this is also to encourage organisers of events and projects to look at how they can make those projects more green where it's not immediately obvious. So it's proposed to include those in the main grants form now. And also something that has been raised is with last year being the first year that the grants budget was completely allocated, to look at ways of making sure that the money is targeted where it will have the maximum impact for our communities. And this section is to say that the council will now not normally fund events or activities for which a charge is made. For instance, a dinner where tickets are sold or a concert where tickets are sold. But where that is the case, if people let us know and can talk to us about what's going to be done with any surplus made, members will then be able to consider whether the fact that that event will be charging a ticket price is outweighed by the amount of money anticipated and the anticipated community use of any money raised. So there are 2 inclusions suggested for the grant form moving forward, Chair, and the recommendation is that both those additional questions are included. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments? Yes, please, Councillor Lake.
It's on that very last issue about charges and whether we will consider it or not. To me, the first sentence, which occupies 2 lines of this proposed amendment or addition, actually gives the impression that we won't at all support or consider something where a charge is made. It then goes on to say, but if it is, then we'd like to know what happens with surplus. But to me, it's not saying we prefer it if you didn't charge, but if you do, we want this satisfied. It is saying we won't do it, but if you do, we want this satisfied. And I think it's a little bit too firm on the first two lines opposing it.
Thank you, Councillor Legg, I appreciate that point you've made. I suppose the softening of that is it says not normally, which gives an element of discretion.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have given grants. I mean, did we not give a grant to the Loath Fort for a particular event? Now, they charge for entry to the Loath Fort. I don't know if they charge particularly for that event, but they do charge. Does that then preclude them and people like that? Because they're making an overall charge to run something, to run the building, etc. I'm just interested in how that fits through that.
A good call.
If I may, Chair, thank you. Where the question will request detail of if a surplus is made, how will those funds be used to benefit the communities in Weymouth? I think with the Loath Fort will be able to say that as a charity, a CIC, forgive me, I'm not sure exactly which they are, but any surplus made goes back into ensuring that the Loath Fort continues to stay open and develop and do the excellent work that it does locally. So what this question isn't aimed, Councillor Legg, and I'm willing if somebody wishes to consider even a slightly softer use of language around that, that it's not normal that we would fund something that makes a profit. However, if you're asking us to fund something that you're charging for and is going to make a profit, we'd like to know what you're going to do with that surplus.
Can I make an amendment? Can I suggest that in the third line after the full stop, we insert if it is intended to have a charge and then carry on. So if it is intended to have a charge, please let us know.
Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Harris. Shall any discussion or shall we put that to the vote?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about this question of making a charge, because I can think of a number of things there where we made grants to various organisations. I think we made one to the rowing club. And clearly all these people make a charge because they've got to run the organisation. I just think we need to be a bit clear about this, because I don't want to put off people who might feel, well, we're making a charge for something and therefore perhaps we don't, we don't qualify.
Yeah, I think the rowing club would be a membership, wouldn't it? The coffee charge maybe for lessons as well.
Right, but then it's the same thing, isn't it? We're saying they're making a charge and they presumably make a service that, most organisations who are charitable otherwise have to make some sort of charge to run the thing. And then, but they're asking for a grant for some specific thing. And we could say, well, actually, you're charging, why can't you do it? I don't know what, feel, but I just think we need some clarity around this. Because I wouldn't want to cut out, things that people who are, community things, which they could feel that they're not, they're not able to have a grant for.
And Councillor
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a difference with the Loath Fort, and I understand what you're saying. With the Loath Fort, what we're saying here is that you buy a ticket to go to an event. So anyone, visitors, local people, or anything else, can buy that ticket. With the rowing club or kitchen putt or whatever it is, kayaking clubs, you would be a member, and you pay a membership fee, but you then don't buy a ticket to take part in something. You are a member and you take part, and I think that that's where the difference is very clear. It's a membership charge, not a charge for a ticket for a particular event.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to support the amendment because I do support the motion as a whole. And I think, whilst I understand where Councillor Nicholson is coming from, I think what we're indicating here is that we won't be sponsoring an event. If an organisation comes forward and says, well, it's £600 to book a venue on private entertainment to raise money for, say, an international charity, then the money goes out of Weymouth. That's what we're saying with this, that we won't support. However, if a local organisation in Weymouth wants to do something similar, the profits are then invested in Weymouth, we would consider it, because our £500 may turn into £1,000 or £2,000 to be spent locally. So it's just saying, you may be declined because you're charging, but the committee, when judging your application, will take into consideration where the money's going.
Of course, the application will come here pretty soon. So we have an amendment. Can you just repeat that so that we've got it down on the wall, isn't it? That's on the wall. Thank you. All those in favour of the amendment, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. So that now becomes a substantive motion. So somebody now to propose the substantive motion. Councillor Hope, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Lowe, thank you. So those in favour now of the substantive motion.
Yeah, that is unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. It may seem a bit strange to the public, but that's what we have to do. Right. So that's now agreed, and we can go on to the grant applications, and we've got 4 quite interesting ones with a substantial amount of money involved. So God's Green Fingers, which involves something a tumble down. Who would like to present this?
Thank you, Chair. We have got 4 grant applications this evening. Pleased to welcome representatives from each of those groups who are here this evening to talk on each of those applications. Members would have seen the applications forms when they were circulated. As you say, Chair, the first one is God's Green Fingers to develop more growing space at Tumble Down and to enhance what their work they're doing now. And I don't know if you would like the representative just to outline the.
Yes, I think Andy, if you'd like to come up to the mic and answer any questions the committee members may have.
Evening, everybody.
Good evening. You want to say a few words about the project first of all?
Certainly. Okay, well, Tumble Down Farm is probably an amazing place, which came into my knowledge through John Morrell some years back, and various ideas have come and gone, but we decided as a small group, it was literally within the church, within the rectory, a small group of us would start to produce food, natural healthy food for local food banks. That's now developed, and it's no longer, although we're under the umbrella of the church, we are not, many of our members are not church members. It's not a Christian organisation as such, which I know the question will be out on proceeding, I'm sorry. But basically, we want to produce fresh, healthy, natural food to supply vulnerable local people through the food banks of the Nest, or we've been doing it now for more than 2 years, and we want to develop, we want to grow. There are 2 sides to this. One is we need more volunteers, and we're seeking those actively. As we speak, there are some people working on that. But funding, we're all volunteers. There's no membership fees. We get no income from the church or anywhere else. We have had a generous donor has helped us, and we are doing in this Saturday, if you fancy coming to Surround's church, the school hall, there's a coffee morning. But we're not fundraisers, we're gardeners. And in fact, I attended a meeting with other people here on Tuesday in Dorset, and my word, it really hit me between the eyes, the desperate need for food. And this particular food, because we're producing natural, healthy food. Now, I must
First of all, forgive me, I'm talking a bit, but it's important to say this. But Tumbledown Farm now is very coherent. I think Alan Chambers, the manager, doing a wonderful job. And there is very much a joined up thinking going on. And I know that a lot of other food is being produced there for the same reasons. And I think that's very, very admirable. And many of the ideas we have are crossing over and working together with others. But the bottom line is, we are a group of people, there's 18 of us all told, some from the church, some not, who are growing food and flowers as well to brighten up people's homes, to supply local vulnerable people. And we want to develop, we believe we can do a great deal more.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Hope and Councillor Lambert.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. One question I've got here, I think the project's absolutely fantastic, and this isn't the first time I've heard Andy talk about this project, because I think he was looking for some funding recently, you've heard going to Tumbledown. But one question I've got here is, part of the application, you want to purchase some seating, I think,
It is in the application, forgive me, I should have taken that out before I forwarded the second, because in the costing, no. Because first of all, we've had a donor, we have had some seating, but also having met with Alan Chambers, we're looking to work alongside him, that seating wouldn't just be on our part, that we would have to be sitting in the best position on the whole farm.
I'm very pleased to hear that, because I was just about to say, we need seating in the growing fields for the volunteering. I know that there's a number of benches already in Tumbledown that could probably be utilised, so that was my point, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm in a difficult position on this one, I've got to say. My raison d'etre almost is to make sure that there is plenty of food grown locally, and this project was exactly. And I've had the privilege of working with gardeners from Godfrey things in the past at Tumbledown and setting up. However, this sits uncomfortably with me, I'm afraid. So this was new information. I'm being told that you're no longer interested in building the tower. Is that correct?
No, we have built the well. It's there. My brother-in-law came with the bench. We still wish to put flowers around it, but through basically our own money, we created the tower.
Right. Well, but you're wanting money for the tower.
No, I'm very sorry. It's my mistake. There's that second paragraph on item 13. I shouldn't have included that. If you look at the costing is all about raised beds and the actual growing projects, not for the balance. I did originally send an application in. I met with Alan, and on his, both of us agreed, I reduced the level of the application and took out the seating and the lower.
Okay.
I'm very sorry. It's my mistake there.
Yeah, well, that's clarified for some thanks. I was instrumental in setting up the growing spaces, and they were specifically called community growing spaces for growing. And so, you know, I'm comfortable about other structures being built on. Now, I'm now being told that this is for raised beds, and I'm very much in favour of raised beds. But I'm not in favour, I have to say, of bringing in soil. The soil upon that field is brilliant stuff. Now I know that potentially it means more work, but the other way of making raised beds is to have lowered paths. And you lower the path and you use the soil to create raised beds. You don't need to buy it in. So I'm not too impressed with the method that is proposed here, although that is a very personal view. It sort of goes against the ethos that we're trying to create at Tumbledown of permaculture, which is working with nature, not using fossil fuels to bring soil in, which is not necessarily my view. The thing that most concerns me, however, is that of possibly setting a precedent here. Because if we give money for one growing space to receive help with producing raised beds, then, you know, we may well have to do that for everyone. And we're in the strange position that we take a rent from the community growing space people. Now we're going to give them money to enable them to operate. And it doesn't sit sensibly with me, I'm afraid. I really would like to support this, but on this matter of logic, in my view, we really can't go supporting organisations who are on those sites. Otherwise, the likes of Transition Town and Mind and the Lantern will all be coming along. And I think what is our responsibility, in which we have done extremely well, is to make the facilities to enable things to happen there. We've laid on the tools, we've laid on the water, we've laid on the basic, but nonetheless there are facilities there for making tea, etc. And I'm very uncomfortable with this, Andy. I'm really sorry.
Can I respond to this? Yeah, a number of things there really, but the purpose of this, well, first of all, money. We are charged a heavy rent, much more than allotments charge. And we have no membership fees, no income, other than our own hard work. Yeah, we pay £250 a year, and the only way we can pay that, other than through this grant, is for our own efforts. That's one of the key reasons that we have no income, we have no means of doing this. I will also say we've not used any tools other than the ones that provided. We've done, and the team. I'm not a gardener. I'm the facilitator. I'm the organizer, so to speak. The others are the experts, and I can't answer many of your questions. But I do know that a lot of retired people have worked really, really hard to dig that. And in the first instance, they dug the entire 2 plots for all that, whatever you call it, grass on the top, which was really, really hard work. We were tempted to bring in a rotary machine, but we knew that was against the principles. We didn't. And the other thing, you say water, sir. There was water brought up to a trough at the bottom of the things where we had to take watering cans and carry over in the heat of the summer every day. Really, really hard work. So I'm sorry, I don't want to enormously respect what you've done, Councillor Lambert, and what you continue to do, and the other people there. But that's part of my answer, and I'll stop there because of.
Okay, thank you. I've got another couple of speakers, Councillor Labour and Councillor Nichols.
Yes, thank you, Chair, or Deputy Chair, Vice Chair, we're accepting.
Thank you.
I do notice still that the Chairman is not here.
Yes. I'll try and upset you some.
Thank you. When I first read this, the reaction I got at the top, because as most people here will know, I'm not religious, was it says God's green fingers. Oh dear me. And that was the first reaction I got. And then I read it through and I thought, yeah, but they're doing very much the same as maybe, I mean, the Rotary are giving money to this, but maybe Rotary could have organised this or supported this themselves, and the Lions Club could. It doesn't necessarily have to be something associated with a God. And then I thought, when people take benefit of this, and it is the free aspect of it, and it's healthy, provide free and healthy nutrition to all group members. And I also then thought, well, what happens if someone is a Muslim and they believe in Allah, not God? I know how there is a God, but that's the way it's referred to. Would that put them off having it or using it? And that was the one reservation I had. And I mentioned this to Andy just now when we came in before we started, and he's already answered part of that some of them members that work on this are not even members of the Church of England. So they do welcome other people there as well, which I applaud very much so. I don't mind it being centred on a particular organisation, which might be religious, but I don't want to see people being put off because of that knowledge of its connection.
Can I respond, please, sir? Sorry.
That's right. But in terms of what Councillor Lambert has said, yes, I do have some sympathy with it. Like, yeah, if you can get the soil on site by just reorganising something or something like that, why not do it? Because it does reduce the cost of having to buy it and also reduce transport costs. We're always against transporting things unnecessarily. But I'm not going to go along with Councillor Lambert because I think, quite frankly, now it's been mentioned, it might well be investigated. And I hope it is to see whether that can be taken out totally or even partly in the guise of being simply green to do it. So those are two aspects I've had about it, but Andy, what you was going to bring that up anyway.
Thank you. I mean, clearly, if they were to use salt or tumble down, that would reduce their costs. And when they come to tell us what they've done, that bit of money might come back to us, mightn't it? That's the idea of the scheme. But don't use it all.
should do, shouldn't it, actually, according to our protocol?
So,
I cannot satisfactorily answer the question about the quality of the soil because I don't know. I do know that the others in the group feel would not necessarily agree with what Councillor Lambert said about the quality of the soil, but I'm not in any position to make an argument on that. I would, however, very much like to say, we have absolutely no concern about where the food goes. We're concerned about where it goes, what we do with vulnerable people, but who they are, what they do or don't believe is absolutely of no interest whatsoever to us. And we've got a food supplier here, and I think we'll back that up. We don't know where it goes. We know that it goes on the shelves, either at the nest, or it goes to the food banks to be distributed. We don't say, oh no, only for Christians, you know. No, we don't do that. Absolutely not. And the name came because it started within the church. But it's no, although we're under the embrace of the church and the charitable status, right, it's not a church organisation.
okay, thank you. Councillor Nickinson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm always concerned when somebody like Councillor Lambert, who is heavily involved in a project like this, has reservations. I'm not a gardener, but what seems to me his objection is this question of raised beds. Does it have to be raised beds? I mean, they want to provide 50% more food, etc., which seems a laudable thing. But perhaps, Councillor Lambert, could you be a bit clear? I mean, what would satisfy you on this? Because I'm unclear what the objection is and why we have to have raised beds.
Thank you, Councillor Questions, Mr. Chair. We don't have to have raised beds, but there are horticultural advantages to having raised beds, and in particular, if you've got people of limited mobility, which I know may well be the case here, they can be advantageous, and it can mean that you maximise the cropping on a particular space. So that is to be encouraged. It's the mechanism by which they intend to go about it that concerns me. Listening to what people have said and to what Andy has said, I am prepared to pull back from my original position. Undoubtedly, I was pretty wound up at the prospect of paying for a bower and seating, because I don't think that's appropriate. I think that this could be done at a much smaller cost. These seem to be maximum cost to me. It includes, I'm now at the correct bit, it includes mushroom compost, which is an expensive way of fertilising the soil, and I'm sure there are cheaper methods than that. I think the topsoil could be reduced in cost, and I'd be surprised if you needed to spend £100 on seeds, quite honestly.
Again,
However, if I'd be prepared to go along with this if that's the will of the rest of the committee, provided there was some assurances that any money that wasn't spent on producing the raised beds was returned, because I do think this is over the top for raised beds.
I think that's all party agreement, but
It is, Chair. So just to confirm, as part of the agreement, which is part of the standard terms and conditions, any unspent money will be returned as part of the review at the end of the project. And just on this one again, like some people, I'm not a gardener as such, but I know that Alan Chambers has been in conversation with Andy and has is in support of the proposal.
Okay, so can I have your proposition, please?
Could I just, well, one last point, can I just say to, make a suggestion, I'm happy, if Councillor Lambert is happy with this, and he knows more about it than I'm happy to support this, but could I suggest that Councillor Lambert outside this meeting has a discussion with those people, just to clarify and make sure he's happy with some of these costings and they do fit into the parameters that he's talking about, because I you know, I'm not an expert on this, but I do, you know, obviously appreciate his views on some of them.
Okay, yes, Councillor Hope.
Thank you for allowing us to come back, Mr. Chairman. I'm just slightly concerned picking up on Councillor Lambert's points around the costing of this. I know that we can get any underspend back, but we really got to think that last year we spent this grant. We've already allocated 5,000 from this year's budget on a 2-year contract to the Lansdowne. You look at the applications we've already got at our first meeting from this year's budget. We've really got to be sensible on this. It's not to, okay, I don't believe, it's to say, you've asked for 1,000, give us back the change. If we truly believe that the project can be delivered for less, we've got the expertise in the room, which I know Councillor Lambert has, he's already indicated, and to do this project on less, it's up to us to be responsible to do that. It's the taxpayers' money. So, knowing that it can be done for less, knowing the expertise is there to do with that, personally, I think 2 things. Number 1, we need to be having this conversation and sharing some of these best practices with our tenants, because some of them may be spending too much as well, where they get their money from, in a majority of cases, is the taxpayer, and they can utilise it to support more vulnerable residents. But number 2, I don't think we should give the full amount that I can. I know that £250 already been received from another organisation. Couldn't see in here where the group itself was going to draw any funding in. And there are other organisations out there that would support this sort of activity. I do support it though. I think for 18 volunteers to go out there and grow fresh fruit and veg to support our most vulnerable people in the community should definitely be applauded. And I'm happy to propose that we give a grant of £500.
Mr. Chair, is it okay for me to?
Yes.
I would very happily follow up on the suggestion that perhaps with Alan Chambers and Councillor Lambert and myself and some of the more knowledgeable members of our team, we know they're gardening, we meet up at Tumbledown Pub at a agreed time with a view to how we can perhaps reduce the amount of expense. I've gone on other people here. I'm not an expert. This is not my costing. This is what my.
Thank you, Andy. We have a proposal to make the grant £500. Do you have a second? Councillor Rotley.
Do I make a comment? I'm just reading or rereading item 11 says how much funding you're applying for, or question 11, £798.95. Yeah. So it's not the 1,400 that, well, 14, sorry, the 1,000, whatever it was, it's a total cost.
That's the chunk, but I've taken away the amount of the rotary.
So this amendment is actually reducing from nearly 800 down to 500.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, I've got a proposal and a second. All those in favour, please show. Those against, please show. Abstaining. Okay. So the committee have agreed a sum of £500 only,
Thank you very
and
much.
some discussion about possibly where the soil and
We welcome
few things can be helped out with. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
There's no need for you to stay for the rest of the meeting unless you're desperately interested to hear.
I'll wait for a bit. Thank you.
Right, the next one is Weymouth Food Bank. And we have Jean here.
John Paul.
John Paul.
I think, again, Chair, I think we'll, I'm sure we'll be able to fill members in, but obviously the summary of us, this one is the buy food and vegetables for a 6-month period from the 1st of March 2023 to be distributed at the food bank locations.
Right, thank you. Could you enlighten us a bit more?
So we're Weymouth Food Bank. We operate in 3 locations where we give the food away in the town. And as well as that, we have a warehouse in Ramsey Estate. I don't think it'll come as a surprise to any of you that the demand for food bank has massively increased. Certainly, in the last quarter, we had 1,835 referrals. That's people coming to us asking for help. We fed 3,667 people in that quarter. And that's double the previous year. I guess that 4 or 5 years ago, the clients coming to us we give tins and packets essentially and other donated goods. 4 or 5 years ago, when we had fresh fruit and vegetables, very few of our clients were that interested. Some were, but often we see waste there. There's been a massive change now, and when we have fresh fruit and vegetables available, our clients are really pleased to take it, and that's been a step change. We're looking at our resources. The level of food coming in through food bank, through the supermarket trolleys is roughly the same, so it's held up, which is great. But it means that all of this increase we've had to fund, and so most of our funding comes from individual donations. People that give on a standing order. There's Rotary Club and a whole raft of other organisations as well. We've had some grants from Dorset County Council as well, but I'm unsure how much that would be. But we're in a position now where we're looking at our funding, and in the past we've been able to do things like buy shampoo and body wash or soap for our clients. We're now looking and saying, with the way things are going, the increased demand, we're having to look carefully at where we spend our money. At the moment, we are spending roughly, in excess of £2,000 a week to supplement what's been given to meet the demand in this town. It's that great. And so we're looking carefully at our budget. What this grant allows us to do is to buy that fresh fruit and vegetables. We're very grateful for organisations like God's Green Fingers, Tom Down, etc. But they are only able to meet a small percentage of what we need, and particularly not the fruit. They plant apple trees, but they go a number of years before we get apples from them, for example. So this £3,000 allows us to buy fresh fruit and vegetables for distribution, apples, bananas, etc. And that's the reason for our application here to allow us to do that.
Thanks very much. Any questions? Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've been pleased to work with JP since these were set up in the best way that they can. And I know that they do fantastic work. But we should not be having to support food banks. In 2023, it's an outrage that in the 5th or 6th biggest economy in the world, people are having to come to food banks. We should be ashamed of ourselves, in my opinion. I'm ashamed of this country for allowing us to get into this state. However, sadly, we are in this state, and I'm really perturbed to hear about the increase in numbers in Weymouth. I know it's going on nationally. It's a doubling since last year, did you say?
In the first quarter, yes, a doubling.
Okay. We're in really serious times here. So I will therefore absolutely support this. I really regret the fact that we are in this position, but we are where we are. And I urge the other councillors to support this, because I know that money will be well spent. It's incredibly well managed and resourced by an awful lot of people. But I do think that we should be making a support, and I will be pleased to make a proposal for this to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Legg.
My question is what type of food may well be included here? And it's because, I'm a member of the Consumers Association, I've been for a donkey years actually. Now, I think it was them, but I might have read it in the paper, but I think it was them, who came forward with a report about, freshest food. And the freshest food is frozen food, because it's frozen very soon after it's harvested. And it's also tend to be, in a value, sense, the cheapest, because they buy it in more bulk. And not necessarily have, if you like, something that looks nice, if it actually sort of freezing is adequate as a food. And so the Consumer Association, and I think it was them, but please don't somebody go ahead and blame them for this, said if you want to have the cheapest and the most nutritious food, it will be frozen. Are you intending to have any frozen foods?
It's not really practical. Most of our people come, some have cars, a lot of walking, and actually just have frozen food like that. We also have, we do have, freezers there, but it's mainly to make sure that any food that's given, we can use. So our freezers are mostly full of bread that's been donated, but we don't want to go off. But it's really just not practical to do that. And, I mean, fresh fruit is what we're going for here, and that's what our clients are really craving. You know, and it's apples, it's bananas, it's oranges, that's what this will be spent on. Carrots, potentially. Although we're looking again at that because our last batch of carrots we bought came from China, believe it or not.
Not very fresh, is it?
No, well, we were not best pleased, not very local either. But I can assure you on the cost as well, that we're fully volunteered, we have no paid staff. More than 95% of our cost goes into actually buying food, which goes directly to the clients, so we're very lean.
Thank you. So I've got two more that want to speak, or three now. Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm a little bit concerned about this as well. Until very recently, I was a trustee of Portland Food Bank. And I know we had big donations of fruit and vegetables from one of the local supermarkets on the island. And I had to persuade people to take vegetables. They turned their noses up at it. I'm pleased to say, you know, that you say that that's not the case now. Despite that, we had, or potentially had, a lot of waste of those fresh foods. We had a huge take up for the frozen vegetables, frozen peas, frozen carrots. Sadly, that's what a lot of people recognise as vegetables, and that's what they know how to cook. So it concerns me. I absolutely agree with everything that Councillor Lambert said, that we should all be ashamed of ourselves, but we can't, you know, we can't deal with that, so we have to deal with the immediate problems. And I'm just worried about how beneficial this will be, because actually, again, Councillor Legg is right. All the information tells us that tin peaches are as beneficial for children as an orange or a banana, and tin peaches don't go off, or, you know, got a couple of years before they do. So I'm just a little bit worried. I don't want to deny you the money either, because I absolutely understand better than most what Reverend Food Bag is all about. But I just worry about, and I know that you know, and I know that you're well run, so you will make sure that when you're buying in, you're being very circumspect about it, so that you reduce the amount of wastage you possibly can. But the potential, once you get fresh food, is for wastage, and that's what I'd like to avoid. Thank you.
I'm fine. All I can say is the way that we run, we have virtually none we throw away. And part of that is because we're not really actively asking the public to donate fresh food, because we can't deal with that, because we don't know when it's coming or what's happening. We can deal with tins and packets. So that's why something like this, if we've got the money, we can go and buy, and we know how many apples to buy, we know how many oranges to buy for that week, so that they don't go on. And, you know, I really find it very strange how that you say that it's been thrown away at Portland, because certainly that's not our experience at all.
That was previously, and you're saying that habits have changed.
Councillor Watley.
Yeah. One of my concerns is I hear so many stories from people near me about how many times they go to the food banks. I mean, what is the limit? Is it three visits? Or is it just as and when they get the vouchers? Because everybody has some vouchers, doesn't it, before they come to you?
Yes, people do have to have a voucher, and they're given, by doctors, by the Lancet, by a whole lot of people. If someone comes and turns up and is hungry though, and we obviously don't just accept it, we ask and go through the story, then we won't send people away, we will feed them. In the past, we were an emergency food bank, so people would be limited to probably come 5 or 6 times. I have to say now that there are a group of people that come all the time. We do encourage them to go to the nest. We encourage them to get help through citizens' advice and other things, budgetary tools. But when I speak to someone on benefits, there's a guy I spoke to 2 weeks ago. When his benefits came in, after he paid for his rent and paid for his gas and electricity, he had £65 a month to live on. And him sending on a budget course is not going to help him. And the issue that we have at the moment is citizens' advice and Christians Against Poverty. Those groups there are saying that we can help with budgeting, but all the help in the world is not going to resolve that. And so we have a group of people now, and that's one of the big concerns for us. How we don't want these people going hungry, but how can we move them on? And constantly, that's what we're trying to do: move them on to to more appropriate place, help them to be self-sufficient. But it's true that there are more people coming for lengthy periods of time.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, I'm interested to hear that people are driving to the food bank. It doesn't seem quite the right thing to do, but the other thing that concerns me is what happens after the 6 months period. How are we going to fund it after that? And I'm interested in Councillor Weller's view on this, because whenever you have anything fresh, there is always a tendency that it will get wasted, because if you're not actually sure how many people are going to turn up, a lot of fresh stuff doesn't last forever. And this application is purely for fresh food and vegetables. I would have liked to have thought that if it is more cost effective to have either frozen or tinned, etc., which is as healthy, I would have thought that was a better option, frankly. Because I'm not quite sure what the criteria of this is for people to use it, but I think what is going to happen after the 6 month period? What will you do then?
We've survived this time without grants from any council, and that's on the back of a lot of committed people that give and give regularly. When I talked about the amount of money that we're spending, that means that we're going to have to raise £100,000 plus this year, and that comes from a lot of individual grants. Something like upgrade garden schemes. People who sponsor events for us. But there's a whole pile of people that just give on a regular basis. We need to be responsible stewards though. And so you're right, tins and packets is where our bread and butter is. That's what people need. But we see now that people do, it cheers people up. There's a choice of some apples and some bananas or whatever. And we buy, and we do not throw anything away. That I can't think of anything that we've thrown away other than if something comes in its bag, then we'll throw away. If I can, I'll just respond to the question about Carl. When we have someone working at Dorchester Hospital, not getting paid enough, can't support their family on that, then and coming back from that and having to call them the food bank, again, it says a sorry story about this country at the moment.
I think that is the last one, Councillor Hope.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to echo the words that have been expressed here tonight. All state of countries in to have to rely on food banks. But my only question here is, whilst there's obviously good management And sorry, I was just started by just declaring a non-pecuniary interest. I really belong to an organisation that makes regular donations to the food banks, which is very important, but that's non-pecuniary. So where I was going though was the food banks may be careful how they buy in the produce to make sure there isn't waste. Have they got any intelligence that it's not being wasted to the consumers? Because you're going to a food bank and we know that demand is up, there's more people going there, and you would take what you're given. You know, if there's anyone there refusing food or being picky, you have to question, you're at a food bank because you need food and this is what we're supplying. So, you know, allergies and that side. But, so what I think though is the consumer taking the fresh fruit and veg and then not using it at home is my only slight concern. However, I do support this because I see the other side of the coin. If we start saying, actually, no, you should go frozen because it's longer shelf life and less waste, that puts more cost on the food bank because they've got to get more freezers in to store the food, electric cost. Before we know it, the costs are greater for the frozen food than it is for the fresh produce. So I do see that, but my only concern is the produce being wasted at a consumer? Or do you give some sort of menu suggestions that, you know, each tomato is going with this, so we blend it up and make it into a sauce for your pasta? That's what I'm hoping happens.
Yeah, if I can respond, we don't give them very much, is the answer. You don't get much for this. When you think about £3,000 over a 6-month period, and our clients are remarkably, they come and we ask them, do you want coffee? We used to just give them coffee, but now we ask, do you want? And they go, oh no, I've got some of that, or I don't drink it. I mean, they are very responsible. They know that there's a limited amount to go around, and they really do their best. I also want to say about freezers. The places where we actually give that food away is Weymouth Baptist Church, Western Methodist, and St Francis Littlemore. And again, these are places where there are multiple uses. And yeah, there is just no room to have a lot of banks of freezers there. We just haven't got the room. So again, it's not practical. We have got some freezer space there, but that's really for things like any bread that's left over to make sure it's not wasted.
Thank you. Right, I think we did a proposal from Councillor Lambert. The recommended figure of 2,700. Do I have a second for that? Councillor Harris. All those in favour, please show. Those against? Abstaining? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, Paul, and we just hope things can get better.
Yes. Yeah, hope we're not as busy.
Right. We move on to climate resources and guidance. And this seems found a very interesting project, possibly going to become very large by some of the ambitious stuff you're saying. I think you're asking us for a few links there, but anyway, see how we go. So we have Sophie and sorry. Alex. Yeah. And
Yeah.
thank you. Anything to say?
No changes for the people watching at home. This is a program from Climate Resource and Guidance to a newly established charity. And I'm sure this actually going along that line.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the charity is called Climate Resources and Guidance, but the project itself will be called, or is called Weymouth Climate Hub. The aim is to establish a presence in the town centre, so we're looking for a property which we've got one in sight, which we're going to move into in June, to provide, I suppose, education surrounding climate change and ways to combat it. So this funding would be for our initial project. It wouldn't be at the property. It would be at various locations around the town and provide information leaflets on a variety of subjects to provide education, raise awareness, and hopefully further the project itself.
So what sort of rent you're looking at, and around the town, this information points would be. No.
Well, we'd be looking at, possibly, we haven't had conversations with these places yet, until we have some funding in place at each point, but we're thinking, if not in a property, possibly Weymouth information shop, community centres around town, possibly churches,
Places where people live.
yeah.
Members, anybody got a question? Councillor Lambert?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I've been following this project very closely. I'm not directly involved in it, but I have been helping out from the sidelines. And you won't be surprised to know that I'm very supportive of it. We met on, we're just meeting within the Climate and Ecological Working Group to work out the strategy for the next 5 years or so, in other words, the period of the next council period, in order to hone down our climate and ecological strategy. And one of the areas in which we have failed thus far since declaring a CEE emergency is over awareness raising and communicating with the public. And this is because we chose, rightly or wrongly, but rightly we thought, to concentrate on the things that we could have a direct impact upon. So as you know, for example, there are solar panels going up on Weymouth Town Council buildings, for example, and we've been supporting tumble down along the way. The list of things that we feel that we need to do in order to fulfil our ethical contract to the CEE emergency is significant, and to be perfectly honest, is beyond the resources of this town council. And we really need people out in the community to support us. And Frank, wouldn't have come along at a better time as far as we're concerned, because we will do our bit in raising awareness and educational issues and matters around climate, but to have an organisation in the town whose raison d'etre is to go in exactly the same direction is a real bonus to us. So I hope I speak for other members of the CEE working group in saying that we really do support this, because it means we're going to be able to make much more progress in taking the issues that we know of as a council out there into the community. So I wholeheartedly support this, and again I'll be pleased to propose this. Thank you
very much. Councillor Hope?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to put on record, I'm not a climate denier. You know, I appreciate and recognise that we are in an emergency, unlike some of our elected members. However, my concern with this project is that we're basically funding distribution of leaflets that we have no control over. This is a new formed charity, and I definitely applaud their efforts. But we don't know who's involved. We don't know if who will be producing the literature. We don't know what's going to be on that literature. I'd rather see this money spent internally in Weymouth Town Council producing the literature that we have control with, that we know is correct and right, and working with organisations to distribute it. I'm really uncomfortable about handing over £2,990 to produce leaflets that we have very little involvement over.
Yeah, so Harris.
Thank you. I'd like to understand, I understand what Councillor Hope is saying, but I think that one way that we can help relieve some of his concerns would be that we ask Crag to keep very much involved with the CEE working group so that there is some of that interchange that Councillor Lambert was talking about, because if you look at the programme that is going to come before this council in the next 2 or 3 months, which we hope will then take us through the next 5 years, it's going to have a lot more than this sort of activity that we need to have to get involved with. And our ability as a small town council to do it all ourselves is going to be fairly limited. Consequently, we do need the help of organisations like Crag. We need to get them involved with us, and them involved with us and we involved with them in order to achieve what it is. We all committed ourselves to making Weymouth a carbon-free place in 2030. It's now 2023. Unless we do these sorts of things, we'll never achieve that aim. So I thoroughly support and second what Councillor Lambert has said.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have to agree with Councillor Hope on this. I'm not against the idea of this, but I think sending out leaflets that we have no control over, I just don't think is, I don't think is right. And I would agree with Councillor Hope on this. The aims may be good, but I just don't think we can fund something that we have no control over, Chair.
Well, we'd be perfectly happy to give editorial control to the CE working group or whoever wants to see it. I think I'll still say the council a lot of time and resources actually getting it together and just send the proposed layout to whoever you suggest we send it to. I've got a couple of examples here if you're worried about the sort of thing that we're proposing.
Is there some way where we can manage to work in cooperation with each other on this? Clark or Dean?
I certainly think, Chair, that if there's agreement, then there could be that interaction between the CE group and Crag, so that there is some consensus before any literature is made public. If CE group are in agreement with that.
Yeah. Now that they are.
It's a large group, it's got 12 councillors on it, so it gets a good spread of people looking at those.
Councillor Watson.
I'm so pleased that you're doing leaflets, not relying solely on social media. That's my first to shout. Everybody doesn't look at Facebook, everybody doesn't look at this or that. Whatever they call it, TikTok. Shows how much I know.
I think you got it all right.
Sorry?
You got them all right.
All right. I must have heard some of it. But I agree with Councillor Hope and Councillor Nixon. We do need some control over what goes in the leaflet. And then you say what you said, you're quite happy for us to have editorial vision of it. So I'm quite happy to support it. Up to then I was thinking, no, I don't think so, but now I think, we can do it. If we all work together, and again, it's partnership between the council and outside organisations. One other thing is, have you thought about using and I'm going to get the name wrong, I might need some help, the shop in St Mary's Street?
You did mention that.
The information shop, yeah,
All right, sorry. Quite happy with that. Thank you.
Councillor Hope, want to come back?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just 2 points. Number one, I'm not sure I would agree going to the CEE for approval. I would keep reminding the CEE, you're not a decision-making body. You're a sort of working group and you report services. Point two, CEE though does have a budget. And I'm sure in their budget is its educational purpose to hit exactly what Councillor Lambert's saying. About getting the message out there to people. So why are we spending the community chest pot to benefit the community on something that the council's already got budget for?
That sounds a plan, that doesn't. Councillor Ware, then I'll ask you again. Finance chief here.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think the initiative is great, and I'm on CEE, and I don't want to be thought of as a climate denier at all. But I am concerned about the methods. I like the idea that you've thought about the information shop, because that's somewhere there already, and people are slowly getting to know that that's where they go for information. So that's half of your hurdle already done. I really do think that we need to be working in partnership, because as Councillor Hope said, we've got that budget for education. It's not something that we've done very much of at the moment. We now know people who want to do that. So that's perfect. I'm not absolutely sure that we do have the expertise to write these leaflets in-house, but you do. So working in partnership for the council to do what they do, and for you to do what you do, and for us to create this at the end of it, I absolutely support.
And so, Ian, I think members are veering to the view that we need to be, as a council, be more involved. There is possibly funding within the city budget. So could we pass this over to services and get subcommittee to bring this all together rather than come out of this spot?
The question I would have, Chair, through you to members of the team here, is whether they believe that there was sufficient funding there to do what was being asked by the grant. So there's two different funding levels. So I'm looking at,
I think Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I haven't really studied the budget yet for next year. We're certainly beginning to run out of the funds for this year, as far as I'm aware, because there are things in the pipeline that are going to cost the monies that we,
By this year, you mean?
up until this month, yes.
Okay.
So I haven't seen the closing account to see how much money is left for next year, as well as what any new money is going to be. Because nobody's actually come to talk to me about that. But I'm certainly, if the funding is there, I don't mind it coming from that direction, but I need to have it confirmed that we have got sufficient funds to give the money from that fund rather than this one.
Councillor Hone.
Can I make a proposal then that this is the third, the CE to see if they have budget within their, funding within their allocated budget. And then be preferred to come back to the next services committee to come from that budget. If there's not, then this can come back to F&G for further review.
Thank you. Does anybody second that? Councillor Dickinson?
I'd just like to comment.
Okay.
Ask that.
Councillor Watley second. Sorry.
I would just like that. Who fact checks these leaflets? Because you put in here 3% of Dorset's carbon emissions come from landfill sites. Which landfill sites in Dorset are you talking about?
We drew that figure from the Zero Carbon Dorset report, which is the basis for a lot of
Dorset doesn't have any landfill.
Okay.
So it's important, because I know Councillor Lambert always checks his facts, because he reads a lot. But I mean, that's the first thing I picked up.
Can I just point out that landfill sites can be historic as well? We've still got, not active, maybe, but we've still got a residue, if you like, of past ones, and there's one not that far along the coast.
And apart from that, it's come from a reliable source.
Yeah, it is reliable.
Councillor Hamilton,
Thank you. I'm all for promoting climate knowledge. I'm all for promoting networks and that. I did have 3 questions. You've quoted the Centre for Alternative Technology, and presumably they have template leaflets, maybe, which would take away, perhaps address some of the concerns that councillors have expressed. I'm concerned, leaflets, everybody does leaflets, love them. I just wonder, do you have examples of schemes elsewhere in the country that work this way? And then finally, again, I love the idea of having a dedicated climate change space, but there are places in town that need support and using, and I see that the bid for money includes community centre bookings. Wouldn't using existing community centres be much cheaper in the long run for the organisation? Because running a centre is going to be pricey, isn't it? That's what I'm thinking. So that's 3 questions there.
Right, much remind me of the first 2, but
Centre for Alternative Technology, do they have
I
leaflets?
couldn't find any that seem to pitch at the right level. That they tend to be quite deep into it, if you know what I mean. And these will be aimed at the general public, so I think the level needs to be at a certain place. The second one was about other projects, wasn't it? I haven't heard anything working exactly this way, but this was just the first step of what we intend to do. And it's partly promote our existence as well, so we can go and more support financially and with volunteers and so on. The third question was
About, I mean, the aim,
community centres.
yeah, the aim seems to be about establishing a dedicated space ultimately. But in the meantime, we've got plenty of community spaces that need using and reviving.
Well, quite, and our initial part of this is to go on tour, if you like, around community centres around the town, and maybe once a month on there, and come talk to us and talk about what's in the leaflets. But in the long term, it's important to have one space that everyone knows that's where it's going to be. I mean, there's a lot of information to convey, so it does need a bit of space. But I mean, to be honest, that's not quite relevant to this study application.
thanks for that. Now we have a proposal. Can you remind us what your proposal is? Probably.
So my proposal is the application is deferred and sent to the CEE working group to see if there's sufficient funding within their budget to cover this project. And if there is deemed that is accepted, that there is, then that goes to the Services Committee for review and approval. If the funding is not there, then it can come back to a future F&G meeting.
You a second. Got all the right words? Those in favour, please show.
Now, can I speak to
Or just on the-
against the amendment, please? Thanks. Can I just pick up on a few points that have been made? The group, although it doesn't have it in its name, it is Weymouth based, and we do need to direct the information to specifically Dorset and Weymouth issues. So that, for example, figures that would come out would be like, this is going on in Dorset, what's happening nationally, and that's an important point, I think. Second point I make is over the funding. The CEE group is extremely grateful for the money that it's received, but we could spend it 10 times over without any problem. So I think the crucial point here is that Climate Resources and Guidance Group, CRAG, is a community-based organisation. and they are coming along for a community grant. Now, the fact that it happens to go along with running parallel with what we're hoping to achieve, many of the grants that we give out run along in parallel with what we hope to achieve. Many of the community things that we wish to do are what we would probably do otherwise anyway. And we rely upon the community groups. Now, we've given money to a number of charities, and this is the first time that I've heard any doubt as to whether or not that group will behave responsibly. Well, you've got two people sat there from this group, you know, they haven't got horns. So let's treat them in the way that we treat everybody else and take the measure on the basis of what it says. We did not quiz Andy Jukes earlier on and say, are you sure you're going to give that food that you grow to people who deserve it? We took it on trust. And if they break that trust, then I'm sure that the charity commissioners will have something to say for it. I please ask you, I consider the way this vote may well go. I think you need to consider, are we treating this group fairly? Or is it because it's a climate change issue? Not everybody's happy with all the ramifications of climate change. I understand that. But let's treat them in the way that we would treat any other charity. We would not ask to see the output that they were making. We would ask for a report at the end of the season, and that's perfectly reasonable. We wouldn't be asking for ongoing, overseeing what's happening.
And earlier on, you said you would propose the recommendation. So
The original one, yes.
But we've now got this discussion, so we will need to take the vote. If it falls, then
Yeah.
we'll come back. So I've got Councillor Weller, and Councillor Ho, and Councillor Watley.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I don't really want to extend this any further, but I'm a little bit concerned from the things that Councillor Lambert said right at the start when he was supporting the request for a grant. I am concerned that he might have needed to declare an interest, certainly not a pecuniary interest, I acknowledge that. But he has been in discussion with this organisation. He knows about them very much more than we do. I think, and his information was very helpful. I will say that from the outset, but it would have been good to know that he has a connection with the group. Let's say not pecuniary, not in any way, but is more information than the rest of us have, and that would be useful to know at the start. It may not be an interest, but it seems to me that interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ho.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's just really to respond to the Councillor Lamb's part, and really to say, you know, this isn't an element of distrust about the volunteers and the people in this room. This is a different sort of application than we've received before. We have never been asked to fund printed literature that goes out over a period of time. Something that will be, because we've associated it, we'll have Weymouth Town Council's labour wire, because that will be part of it. When everyone else does a grant application we support, they're required to include our logo in any press release and mention us. So we have to think this is brand limiting. The other thing, Councillor Lambert, and I know you're aware of this, there are people in this room that may be quiet about it, that are climate deniers. There are people, other elected officials in this area, that are climate deniers. And I don't want to give them the opportunity to say that we're funding a political campaign, because climate change to some people is deemed to be political. It's not, it's a fact, it's happening. But it's seen in that way. So I'm trying to safeguard this council and the volunteers involved by saying that we should have some oversight in a project of this matter. Nothing to do with distrust with anyone involved. So I just want that on the records.
Councillor Watley.
I don't think it's a question of we don't want to give them money. It's a question of what pot of our money it comes out of. As we've already mentioned earlier on, we spent last year's allocation very quickly. And if there is money in CEC, then really, can we take it out of there so that we've got 3,000 for somebody else who comes along and wants help?
Thank you. Right, we'll put your proposal to the vote. You've got it on the screen here.
It's not on the chair, but it's just to repeat what Councillor Hope said, it's that the fund is to see the funding, if I correct this correct, Councillor Hope, is within the CE budget. And if it's deemed that there is funding within the education budget to fund this, then it goes to services committee. If it's deemed that the funding has already been earmarked and it's not sufficient within the CE budget, then it comes back to finance and governance to be determined or considered again against the grant.
Thank you. So that's proposed by Councillor Hope, who is the seconder? Who's the seconder for Councillor Watley? Those in favour, please show.
That is 6, Chair.
Those against?
Is 4.
Anybody not voting? 1. Right, so that has been carried. You should be all right. It's going to take a little while.
Okay. All right, thank you all for your time.
And a lot of people have been involved with it as well. Thanks very much.
Yes.
Right. We come on to Dentaid. And we have Sophie and Peter. Welcome. Okay. We'll let you make your presentation and then be ready for some questions. You've had to sit through it already.
Well, good evening and good evening, Chair, Councillors. Thank you for inviting us along tonight. My name is Peter, I'm the Fundraising Manager for Dentaid Charity. I'm here tonight with my colleague Sophia, who in the application funding to Weymouth Town Council. Just a brief overview of the history of Dentaid. I'm not sure how many people have heard of Dentaid before tonight. We're based in Southampton, Hampshire. The charity is 27 years old. It was initially set up to support individuals overseas in remote communities, developing countries, to get them the opportunity of accessing Western dental care, outreach projects, equipment, and nursing. 10 years ago, Dentaid decided to do what we were doing in developing countries in the UK. We've already heard tonight several excellent charities that are operating because of the political reasons and financial issues of this country. 2013 to 2015, Dentaid purchased a mobile dental unit. We soon purchased a second mobile dental unit at auction, cheap. These dental units started by operating across the south coast and at one of our hubs in Yorkshire, where we had a volunteer dentist say that he would like to, there's a lot of demand and need for a mobile dental unit in Dewsbury, which is one of the most deprived communities in the UK. Fast forward to 2020, COVID. The demand for our services in the UK has skyrocketed. When I joined the charity 2.5 years ago, we had 2 mobile dental units operating. 2019, we operated 51 clinics across the UK. Each clinic is a visit by a mobile dental unit. We are predominantly a South Coast charity, but in the last 2 years, we have turned more into a England based charity, UK as well, Scotland, Northern Ireland, just recently, and also Wales. The individuals we see are individuals who, in the UK, who do not have access to NHS benefit, private dentistry, and are on vulnerable or underserved communities.
Each clinic that we operate with a mobile dental unit, we operate with volunteer dentists and dental nurses or hygienists. They give up their time during the week, Monday to Friday, not operating on weekends. And they work for us between 4 to 6 hours. We see on average between 8 to 12 patients per clinic at each location. We very rarely run public access clinics, so we aren't a phone up and make an appointment charity. We work with other charities and we see their clients. The virtues to the Lantern Trust, and that is the reason why we're here tonight. The Lantern Trust in 2021 in the summer approached us looking for support for their clients. We were able to respond. They asked us for fundraising to be able to, if we could fundraise for them, to be able to send the mobile dental unit down to their facility, support their individuals they look after. I remember putting in the application myself. We secured funding. We were able to operate 2 clinics in 2021, and again in 2022 we operated, I think, was 9 clinics. Those 9 clinics we saw 54 patients and delivered 251 treatments. A treatment would be an individual X-ray, fluoride check, polish, cancer screen. All of those checks added together deliver the 251 treatments. The Lantern Trust were really good last year, and they were certainly impressed by what we were able to provide, and the feedback that they got from their clients was so positive that they approached us and said we would be happy to fund half of the clinics that we wanted to operate for a year if you could fund the other half. And we are hoping to sustain that again this year, which is why we're here tonight. We're hoping to put on 7 clinics this year. The application is for £5,000. Overall, we're looking for £2,500, but the Lantern Trust is putting up the other £2,500 on the confirmation of the grant. Dentaid is a charity now. This year we've been successful in promoting the work that we do. We were on BBC News just yesterday, BBC Breakfast, BBC Lunchtime News, showcasing what we do. We now have 7 mobile dental units. We've been fortunate to receive some considerable grants from corporate organisations. As you can imagine, organisations like Weymouth, for example, that have recently just shut down a lot of their dental practices. The negative press that they received, and they want to counteract that with supporting us with grants, and we're happy to oblige that. So now, yeah, we have 7 mobile dental units operating across the UK. Last year we operated 277 clinics, so from 2019 51 clinics to last calendar year 277 clinics. Each clinic costs a minimum of £1,250. That figure comes from the operating costs, the supplies, insurance, fuel. We've currently got a financial consultant in employed by Dentaid at the moment on a 6-month contract to make sure that those costs are accurate. There's been so much change within the charity and also economically recently that we want to remain on top of all the financial figures and the costs. One, to make sure that we're not operating at a deficit, and 2, to ensure the sustainability of Dentaid and also the projects that we've done. So we're here tonight to ask for £2,500 from the council in support of the dental clinics we want to provide with the Lantern Trust.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hope? Councillor Reynolds first.
I don't mind answering.
Yeah, thank you very much. A couple of things concern me with this grant application. Number one, it's coming indirectly from the Lantern Trust, who we've already agreed to give a sum of money to this year. And I know our policy does say that we can give more than one grant if required, correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy Town Clerk. But it just seems a little bit cloak and dagger approach, in my opinion. Second point is, I'm really concerned that we're almost paying for healthcare for a population of our community. Something that should be available to them from the NHS. And I know there are residents in our areas, in our wards, and I'm sure you all know them, who are on waiting lists to get dental treatment at the moment, who, because they don't fall in the clientele of the lantern, wouldn't be able to use this service. So I've just got some real unease about this project, that we're going to be helping a very, very small group of people for quite a large sum of money. And, you know, it's not really right on the rest of the community that are in pain with their teeth at the moment, waiting to get treatment or see a dentist. So I know there's others in the room here that have got experience of this within previous working life, so I'm going to let them speak now.
Thank you. Yes, there is quite a shortage in Dorset. Hardly any practice to take anything for the NHS. And quite a lot of them don't even have any NHS. So Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I actually do know the charity very well, and indeed, when I retired from dentistry, you were the recipients of my entire surgery. It went somewhere in Africa, lock, stock and barrel. So I'm very aware of the work that you do, and you would expect me to say I support every single bit of it, and I do, except that this is another example of a situation where we put our hands in our pockets to support something for which we should be ashamed there is a need for. You know, we had an excellent dental health service within the NHS, and it's been eroded and eroded. You know, I worked within that erosion. I saw the benefits of the NHS when I first started working, and I saw the disbenefits of the erosion when I retired. Like Councillor Hope, I'm really worried that this isn't going to be providing a service for our under fives who are having full clearances under general anaesthetics in hospital because they haven't had checkups when they were 2 or 3 or 4 years old. It's not going to provide for our pensioners who've got a broken down tooth and can no longer eat and therefore suffer from malnutrition. It's not really going to provide for our local people in need. And that really concerns me because it's a very, very small group of our community who will undoubtedly benefit, but we should be trying to spend our money to benefit as many people as possible. And sadly, I don't think this does. And I, you know, I feel ashamed that I'm saying that because, you know, I made my living from dentistry, so I should be saying go for it. But I can't because of those reasons. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other councillor there?
Yes, I follow on from Councillor Weller here. It's rather like the food bank when we had, you know, they shouldn't be doing that job because the government should have got a system set up whereby the people of this country don't need to go to food banks. And the same applies to this, the case of the dentistry. But on the other hand, look at another way round. How grateful will those people that receive the treatment be because they've been able to access some form of care, which otherwise they couldn't do? And I know it's not satisfying the community in Weymouth that's having a problem, but all the community is satisfying a small part of it. But quite frankly, I don't think £2,500 would satisfy them anymore anyway. And I'm despair that we're having to step in for the inadequacies of government, and it doesn't matter what party it is not political. It's gone on for decades. This has, and nothing's been done about it, or not adequate is being done about it. It's getting worse actually. In both cases, food banks and dentistry, I think. I really watched it. Spotlight last night, I think it was, they had dentistry on there in Cornwall particularly.
And someone took out all 19 of her teeth.
Yeah, and then got crowdfunding to have false teeth. And there, but again, it should have been the government or government services that should be providing it, via independent people, of course, but they were funding it or sorting it out. And I don't want to say no, because there might be, is it 240 or 270 people in here you mentioned, that will turn around and say, ouch, I'm in pain, or I've got a problem, or I will get a problem later on, if it's not being checked on now. And there are thousands that are not being seen to, and I'm in that quandary. This is great, but it's not good enough. It's not enough, not big enough. And therefore, should we say therefore we shouldn't support it? No, it's not adequate. It won't satisfy everybody's requirements, but if it satisfies those few people that are grateful for it, then I think I'll go and vote for it.
Right. Anybody else? Councillor Difference.
Hi there. Does your service give them antibiotics? Should they have abscesses or problems like that? Can your dentist supply antibiotics?
Yes.
And it's a full voluntary from that come in. Following on from Councillor Weller, have you ever thought about going into schools?
If I may respond to a couple of the points. You mentioned under fives. We have started providing clinics for look after children. We only started doing that last year, and that was with funding from Action on the Right Council. Again, it's a really difficult group actually, because a lot of them looked after children. They get moved around so much that as soon as an appointment is made, they get moved on again, and then they miss their appointments. So it can prove to be quite an expensive clinic, because they must say that we have 8 to 12 patients in the clinic, which say are homeless organisations or military veterans. Looked after children, we did get a lot of dropouts, so it's pretty difficult. Do we go to schools? Yes, we do. We've got a oral health education program called Bright Bites. It's been incredibly busy this year, so much so that it has exhausted our toothbrush and toothpaste supplies in our warehouse. When I say we got a donation, we verify on our social media and our website, we got a donation of 2,300 toothbrushes last week. They've already gone.
Why I'm keen is because people like in my generation, I'm used to going to the dentist. Yes, I'm lucky enough I go private, but it's keeping those children into the idea of going into the dentist to get away from any fear or anything. And I'm with Councillor Legg on this. I very much support it. I know that I saw a lack of dentistry in the prison service. We couldn't get dentists to come in. You have somebody who's got an abscess, who's got a problem, they become violent, they become antisocial, they might start drinking more to get rid of the pain. So I'm with Councillor Legg on this. If we could help that, just that small amount of people, I'm for it.
Right, thank you. So I think we move on. You made a proposition, Councillor Hope. Can we have it again and vote on it?
I didn't make a formal proposal.
Do you want to make?
I'm happy to, but before I do, I just want to clarify, we're talking, each clinic is £1,250, will see 8 to 12 people. So our funding will see anything between 16 and 24, £2,500. I don't think it's great. So I'm happy. I'm not happy, because I do support the work. I do support all charity organisations that go out their way to help people. But I'm going to propose that this funding application is declined.
Is that a second vote? Councillor Weller. Put it to the vote.
We can vote on that, please, Chair. Well, not vote, speak on the amendment. I was wondering whether instead of going down this route, we went down a route of trying to direct more of that funding to the younger generation and not those just associated with the Lantern Trust. And consequently, if we are going to support a couple more clinics being set up, then can we ask that they could be set up in school and young people and supporting them, and not only supporting them to have toothbrushes and things, because if they're putting them, if they can't then get to a dentist, there needs some definite work with supporting young people, as well as the clinics that the Land Trust might support. And whether there would be some support for going down that route rather than not supporting them at all.
Councillor Weymouth.
Thank you very much, Chairman. On that point, Councillor Harris, and you mentioned our looked after children. We have under 5 looked after do get moved around quite a bit because they're finding somewhere stable to go. So very often they're not the greatest priority, but our older looked after children very often are more stable, and particularly our leaving care young people, so 16 to 25, will very often be in stable environments, and we can identify them, we know where they are. And on the point that Councillor Harris made, I would like to think that you were contacting our unitary authority with our looked after children responsibilities, and indeed the man in charge of dental provision for our looked after children spoke to the corporate parenting team just last month, and we discussed the fact that we're having huge difficulty getting that age group, that 16 to 25, in to see dentists. So if I thought that you could develop that into that very, very much needed area locally, I'd be delighted.
Okay, I think we've got to move on now, try and make some decision.
Yeah, can I just, following on what Councillor Hope says, I mean, clearly the crisis in dentistry is real and it's big, and unfortunately an awful lot of dentists don't want to work in the NHS. I don't know the reasons for it, but they obviously have their reasons for not wanting to, which is why we have a crisis where we can't get an NHS dentist. I mean, you know, realistically, the cost of treatment per person, considering we're having what 12 people, a maximum of 8 to 12 for £1,250, probably equates to some cost of seeing a private dentist. But this isn't going to solve the problem that we have in dentistry, and it's only going to scratch the surface. And I think really to turn it down because it isn't going to solve the overall problem perhaps is a bit churlish. There is a massive problem, as Councillor Weller has said. This isn't going to solve it, but I suppose we've got to start somewhere, really. And for that reason, I think I could support it, Chair.
Okay, so we'll take a vote on the proposition. If that falls, we'll then move on to a vote on the grant or not. So we understand what we're voting on.
So just to confirm, Chair, Councillor Hope, is that the grant is rejected.
Well, how can you have that proposal when really the proposal is to give them a grant, you just vote against it?
Just.
Well, that's come up first.
But, okay, all right, so if we're in favour of it, then maybe we vote against that.
Right, so those in favour of not giving a grant, please show. Or those against. Right.
Can I propose that we give the grant as in the papers?
Is that seconded?
Second.
I would like to amend that slightly, before we take any decision on this, to suggest that some of this money is allocated to the group of people that Kate has mentioned, i.e. the young people between the ages of 15 and 25.
Do you have a second? Right.
Just to check first, Chair, that that is feasible in the scheme of the grant.
Can I pass you my business card, or can we,
Yeah, if we could get together on that, if that's okay with members, because I can introduce you to the people that you need to speak to.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, certainly,
find
certainly.
moving along in that direction?
Yep.
So it looks like Councillor Harris is proposing that subject to a bit more talking about outside this meeting.
No, we agree the grant, but we work with the recipients to try and move some of it towards working with.
Probably going to be all of it, isn't it, really?
Well, all of that.
You got a seconder?
Yeah, okay.
Right. So,
I'm trying. If I may, Chair, before you vote on this, councillors, could you just check that the organisation is able to deliver what you're going to be asking them to deliver with this funding?
I mean, it's setting up, it would be setting up a brand new project, talking to different clients, I'm not sure if the costings would be the same, so there's a lot of variables with this, being honest, and the delivery of that, we've got dates booked in, not funded, but booked in with the Lands and Trust already ready to go. We don't have any at the moment with this authority, and we are extremely busy. So the delivery of this could be, it could be 6 months before we get a budget off the ground at least. So.
I think that's probably a non-starter. Do you want to put it to the vote?
But whether there's any chance with the Lands and Trust, if they've got the younger people there that they see, well, we could try and restrict it to.
I have looked after children's facility just around the corner from the mountain.
Well, in which case,
We have a proposal from Councillor Harris.
Yeah, the proposal is that we try to move it into some young people's activity. It may fail, in which case it stays with the adults.
Right, and you've got a second.
Okay.
Those in favour, please show.
Right.
Let's speak to the proposal.
Quickly, please.
Yeah. I'm just really concerned because we're moving money around here to something we've got no idea where it's going. Now we're saying some's going to the lads and some's going to young people. Let's use this opportunity here this evening to put Council Weller in touch with the charity, put the right channels through Dorset Council for them to possibly use this service to support young people who need it. Let's not try and move things around with the proposal. We don't have the information, and we're talking about the public's money that we're making emotive decisions about. Talk to the facts that are in the application.
Thank you. So, those in favour of the proposition before you, from Councillor Harris.
That's an amendment, isn't it?
Well, it's a proposition. If you vote for it, it goes through. If you turn it down, then we come back to the substantive recommendation, subject to it being proposed for secondary. So those in favour of Councillor Harris's proposal, please show.
Okay, Chair, can I just, I think there may be some confusion of exactly where we are, Chair, so we'll just get some clarification if that's okay.
Yes.
So I think the proposal is the grant will be given with some intention, if possible, to try and divert some so that it benefits the younger group of people, and if not, then it would revert to the adult clientele that was which is within the grant application. I'm just if members were happy that they're agreeable with that flexibility, I think that's just a question that we need to be comfortable with.
Can I just ask if that wording in there which says some intention is changed to best endeavours? Because I don't want it to be wishy-washy. Best endeavours is you try.
Okay, I think we can accept that topic.
Can I just say that I'm concerned now. I think that the proposal that I speak to Dentaid, put them in touch with the people that I know in children's care, and we go from there, and rather than muddy the waters, because it's just too nebulous to know what may or may not happen to the money that this committee are committing to.
So you're withdrawing your.
I will, with respect, David.
Anybody wish to second councillor Harris? Right. We move on to, is anybody going to propose that we make the grant of 2,500?
Done that.
Councillor Dickinson and councillor.
I did that about 10 minutes ago, Chair.
I seconded it.
I think we put that to the vote. Those in favour, please show.
5, 6, and 7, Chair.
Those against?
4.
4. Well, you've got the grant awarded here, so we hope that you can make
You're very welcome.
good use of it and keep in touch.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and also the councillor.
Kate Weller.
Give
me your card.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an excellent proposal, really like it.
Right, we move on to KPIs. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. For some time now, we've been working on a suite of key performance indicators for the council. The report before you today is the result of discussions that have been had at TAG meetings. To come up with a small set of corporate KPIs for the council's central business operating function. Just for clarity, there will be additional KPIs relating to each of the services. These will come out of the individual service plans, which will be going to the services committee for agreement in the coming months. So this represents just those core ones that we want to use to keep an eye on some areas of our central business so we can monitor some key areas. Happy to take any questions or suggestions on these, and they are KPIs that we can look to change and flex in the future as our business needs and key areas of monitoring change and flex themselves.
And this needs to go to full council.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. 2 points. Number 1, average days sick, 4.6.
That's the average in the UK.
That's the average per UK. Are we looking into sort of industry though? We've got 2 different working environments. We've got outside workers, inside office. What's the average for those? Has that been considered? And let's round that up to a proper figure. Let's not have a 0.6 because it's unachievable. You're going to have a half day sick or a full day sick, aren't you, if you go home?
It's an average.
Yeah. Working full numbers. Point 2, I'm confused. Which one of these corporate priorities or strategic priorities from our strategic plan these link to? So before it comes to full council, I'd just like to see an extra column put in this. Which one of our corporate priorities these KPIs are measuring? Because at the end of the day, that's what we said we want to achieve. How are these KPIs linked to our plan?
So I did detail in the impact assessment the 3 corporate priorities that effective KPI planning links to within our corporate plan, being managing the council's assets and resources responsibly and transparently, managing the council's services effectively to meet the needs of the communities we serve. But the key one for me is the striving for continuous improvement and service development. And that obviously applies to the whole suite of KPIs, not just the central ones.
Yeah, I'd just like to know which each one of these are measuring though, because when I run key performance indicators and management reviews, we have our policy, our objectives to ensure that we're meeting them and measuring those. Our KPIs are linked. So it would just be useful to have that column on here to say this is the how we know that we're meeting this target, and this is which strategy is linked to.
Yeah, I can leave that in. Did you want to, Councillor Hope, suggest an actual figure for the target for today's sickness? Around it, did you want 4.5 or 5 or? And 4.6 is the average that, and we will be taking all the different elements and averaging them out. So, you know, I chose to stick to the 1 decimal place just for ease of understanding.
let's go 5, let's set a target we hope that we can achieve and then change it next year when we look to improve.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I always have a problem with KPIs, having worked with them for many years, and that is, you have a KPI, and some of them will meet and some of them we won't. What is the review process for this, and how often are we going to do it? And what part of the council is going to be responsible for monitoring this, and what action is going to be taken, or by whom is that action going to be taken, if we find that some of the KPIs aren't being met? Because it's easy enough to have KPIs, but they're useless if there isn't a process to actually remedy them. I'm not sure I understand what that process is. Who will be responsible for it? What decisions will be made to rectify any that aren't being obtained? And you know, are these going to be discussed by full council with recommendations as to how they should be improved or changed? It's just no good having sets of figures because they're meaningless. We do need to have a robust policy put in place. Is that, you know, reviewing them after 1 year is no good at all, because the whole be bolted by then. We need some committee, whether it's F&G or somebody, to be reviewing this on a more regular basis and understanding, all councils understanding what action will be taken to remedy these. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. What I'm proposing is to bring quarterly reports on all of these KPIs to be centrally reported to full council after having gone through the most appropriate committee. So for the day sickness, it makes sense for HR to look at that, and for officers to suggest ways to remedy that. The only sort of caveat on some of them is that some of them don't lend themselves to regular monitoring, say quarterly. The resident satisfaction survey is going to be an annual event, so that will be an annual reporting. But my goal is to take the individual ones to the best committee and then feed those through into the quarterly central report to full council.
So having gone to, say, Services Committee, would that a recommendation come from them? Would that then be discussed by full council as to what action is to be taken, or what? How's it going to work? Because we do need some, we need to understand how we're going to rectify what may be going wrong, isn't there? You know, I just think we need a formalised process for this.
It depends what that recommendation is. If the recommendation for action sits within the delegation to services, it makes sense that services can make that decision and can get on with the work. If it falls under the remit of the HR committee, it makes sense for the HR committee to make that decision. However, all of that will be reported in the quarterly reports for council.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Very much, Chair. I'm not happy about moving this 4.6 to 5, partly because it's an average, and averages work out. Well, you can go to many decimal places if you want to, it doesn't matter. And partly because if the average for the country is a figure, I don't know what it is, I want to see we're better. We're in the top half in the country. And therefore that means you've got to do better than their figure, and that's 4.6. So I don't agree with making it a round number, that's not relevant. And I do want the target to be better than the average for the country. The other thing I have here is an issue about the size of the workforce we have. A long time ago, I was on Dorset County Council Staffing Committee, as it was called then, HR would be nowadays, if it existed properly. And I remember these KPIs for sickness got slewed dramatically for a period of time because just 3 people out of about 5,000 had very long-term sickness and you couldn't bring them back quicker. And I'm worried that you get 1 person in this organisation, what we have just over 50, isn't it? So that will slew that KPI and make it meaningless. So I would like to see that redone as in some way. And I'm not quite sure how, but I was just thinking, we allow for self-certification, don't we? And self-certification is 5 days or less?
1 week, yeah. So 5 working days in the standard week.
I would like to see it apply particularly, well, maybe it could be 2 KPIs, but one of them to self-certified sickness, to keep that below the national average, whatever that national average might be. And then the other one can be total if you like, but you've got to have a codicil on that to say, yes, but one person's been on sick for 3 months is likely to be for another 2 or 3 months as well.
We can split it out into 2 KPIs, short term and long term.
Yeah.
Short term being,
Self-certified, I think is quite
Yeah.
important.
Okay,
Could I propose that?
yes. Councillor Questions.
Yeah, I understand that, your point, but the whole idea of KPIs is that when they don't fit what we think they are, then somebody can come up with an explanation. If that explanation is that we have one person on long-term sick, that can be explained. And that's, you know, there are always reasons why KPIs go out and they go out of kilter, but surely that when the report comes back, we need to quiz those who are generating and say, well, you know, it's now 6 days. Why is that? And you know, facts can be given around that to understand that. That's what a KPI is there for, is to highlight these things and then to get answers.
to reassure members, if I can, through the chair, that the reporting back to full council will have those considerations, reasons, justifications, ameliorating statistics, all included in it. We won't just be presenting just the numbers, there will be a commentary with that.
It won't just be an Ofsted inspection.
Absolutely not.
Right, can we just agree this? I think the chair, but I've got the number there.
I've got a really important one. There's no environmental KPIs here. For a council that's declared a climate emergency, and I'm surprised my good friend Councillor Lambert didn't pick up on this. I can't see any climate KPIs to show that we're serious about driving down our carbon emissions. So for that reason alone, I won't be supporting this.
I'm more than happy to add in additional KPIs on the advice of the CEE on what CEE feels we should be achieving as a council. I'm aware that CEE is currently working on its action plan, and that can be fed in under the background of what our service is. We can include environmental in that, because in the absence of any environmental targets being set for the council, it's very hard to put those KPIs in, but more than willing to add environmental KPIs on the advice of CEE.
Is that okay? Yes, no?
I would prefer the recommendation to say before this comes to full council, there be one there. Because I give it the loop that this process is going on, and I know that both the chairman of CEE and Councillor Lambert sit on table, this has been discussed, so should be here, so I'd like to see it on full council, but that's before the recommendation is, otherwise I couldn't support it.
Oh, yeah. It needs to either come back here or go to full council with whatever amendments we've discussed.
You're not talking about full council on the 3rd of May.
Oh, no.
When do you think these will come to full council?
Not the 10th of May either, so June, it would be the June
In which
meeting.
case
Does that
I think
fit in with your
that-
timescales?
Yeah, for something to you.
The action plan will need to be formally agreed by the services committee.
Yeah.
Before it can be used as a basis.
Be something simple as a percentage of the action plan completed, or reduction in carbon, 2 KPIs straight away there.
We need to be able to reassure ourselves that we can measure.
We need to get it done by 2030.
Right,
But I
so,
think KPIs will be approved before that.
Yeah. But you've already shown some, Mr. Chairman, it's been agreed that this comes to a full council meeting, and you suggested that there will be changes to this. So as long as we can put on the full council meetings statement, an agreed environmental key state indicator will be following.
yes. It will be ready by then.
No, it may not be ready by the 3rd. So I'm saying if it's not ready by the 3rd, if it's got to go through services first,
All right, yeah.
then let us have a space. Make it clear to the council that we will be having a one to agree.
Work in hand.
Yes.
Right. Are we happy with it? Have we got a recommendation?
So the recommendation is to, unless, I'm not sure if you wish to take each of the 2 amendments
Yes.
separately. So the first amendment being to split the sickness into short-term and long-term. The second amendment is also to put in an agreed placeholder for an agreed environmental KPI to be included at the earliest possible dates.
Right.
So there's those two amendments.
So,
Chair, can I, sorry, just to make that, this question of long term, what is the definition going to be of long term and short term?
5 days.
So,
Self-certification.
5 working days.
so anything that's above 5 working days sickness will go into the short term.
No, long term,
Long-term.
less than 5 days, short term.
Right, right, yeah.
Do I have an official proposal and a second of that?
I proposed that already, Chair.
Yeah.
You seem to be ignoring my proposals tonight.
He's on the phone today.
You're doing very well today.
Right, I'll second that. Can we put that through, please?
8, 9, 10.
1 abstention or against? Abstention. 1 abstention, right. And then to insert a second line about environmental,
A placeholder for the environmental KPI to be added at the earliest possible date.
proposed by councillor Harris, seconded by councillor Weller. Those in favour, please show. That is another one. I think we've got unanimous. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Right.
Eh?
I think,
No, and how much opposite time is it going to take?
Michelle, I now think it's your turn.
You need to vote on the
Oh,
recommendation.
we now need to vote on the substantive, as here, plus the 2 changes. Proposed by councillor Weller, seconded by councillor Legg. Those in favour, please show. Thank you. So we now move on to item 10, which is came from councillor Hamilton to start with, and it's been looked at in some depth by Michelle here, and it's a possibility of funding some provision to school children in a way of food vouchers, I think.
So yeah, I was asked at the last services meeting to bring this forward. I've had a look at what is currently available. There is a lot of funding available to people, but there is obviously, we are in difficult times at the moment with economy and stuff. So people are still struggling. And we heard obviously from the food bank there's been a bigger increase. Whether I know that Dorset Council do offer all the children who are eligible to preschool meals vouchers in the holidays. Whether that's been taken up or whether that's enough is a concern. So looking at the figures of the children we have currently in Weymouth that attend schools, could be in Weymouth or Chippenham or Portland. So these are the figures I was given by Dorset Council. As of October 2022, we have 1,150 children in schools who receive preschool meals and therefore are eligible for their holiday vouchers. So what we're proposing with the support from Lucy is either to be able to fund all the school holidays, which is 13 weeks, or support just the half terms, which is 3 weeks, February, May, and October. The cost breakdown, if we were to do the full 13 weeks of school holiday, it would cost us 44,850. And if we were to do just the 3 weeks holiday, which both are at £3 each, is 10,350. So the recommendation is to see whether the council could support funding either 3 weeks or 13 weeks.
Right. Just to say that we don't have immediate finance for this. And so any proposal we can make will need to go through full council. And they won't be able to do that until we've seen the end of last year's figures and what, if any, is available in underspent, because although we have money in various reserves, don't have actually, that's all allocated, so we don't actually have a lot of money in reserves that we can currently use, that should an underspend come through, by the time of the next finance meeting is, then that could be made possibly available, subject to full council agreement. Anybody want to speak, Lucy, first?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Chair, for confirming that, and thank you, Michelle, for your work. What I would underline to members, we spoke about this in November, many of you were there, many raised very serious questions about this. I would remind members that the numbers that you're looking at there, 10,000 plus, 44,000 plus, those are absolute maximum numbers. The Portland scheme has found that not all schools want to take up this offer. That's what they've found. So this is assuming 100% take up, and I can't guarantee that that would happen. I think we have to ask ourselves, we did last time, is this the role of a parish council? Well, Portland Town Council is already doing it, so there is precedent there. The last time it was asked, there's a risk to our reputation if we can't continue it. I'd say there's a risk to our reputation in the fact that there's children who live in Portland attending Weymouth schools who do benefit from this very small increase. The sum we're talking about is £3 a week, nominally box of cereal and a pint of milk. And if we look at that figure over the 3 weeks, the half terms, if we divide that sum over our Band D properties, we're just talking about a cost of 56 pence a week. If we look at a larger sum of 44,000, that's equivalent, sorry, 56 pence a year. And if we look at the larger, that's £2.43 a year. So I'm going to propose that we need to find this in our budget for next year. What I'd like to propose today is that we recommend to full council that this money is found, and then start the work finding out what the take-up would be. We're living in exceptional times. We do have reserves, we do have underspend with any luck. And I'm thinking the comparison really with our community grants is we're looking to get funding to our most vulnerable residents. And we're looking with our community grants to build greater self-sufficiency. I say supporting food into the mouths of children of school age is one way of enabling them to have a better start in life. The administration of this scheme is simplicity itself. The schools let the council know how many children they're talking about, and the schools issue supermarket vouchers direct to the parents. Those are parents, many of whom work, who can't get to the food bank. The parents, many of whom work, can't get to the nest. And I know that there are many elderly people. I know there are many people that are just above that barrier of need. Those areas of need are not a reason to stop us targeting this help to those in most need. So I'd like to propose that we recommend this to full council for the upper sum.
I'm going to say, can I just clarify which one you look at? That's for all school holidays.
Yeah.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, can I applaud Councillor Hamilton for bringing this forward. It's absolutely devastating to think that there's children in our community that go hungry for the sake of £3 a week. But my big concern with this is it's not the responsibility of the parish. The government should be picking up the bill. They picked up the bill when Marcus Rashford made the papers saying feed the kids over the holiday because they were scared of the PR. It's about time more of us stood up to the government and told the government look after our vulnerable. And I hope come October next year with the general election vote, that people do in the ballot box.
Thank you very much.
I would just like to say that I can't support this because I do feel it's not the responsibility of the parish council. I feel it's the responsibility of parents and the government. And the government set up the holiday activity and food programme so that people in receipt of free school meals can go along to schools where they get fed and they have exercise, which I think is fantastic. There's also the household support fund, which they can apply for. There's also a family allowance, which they get. And yesterday, 8 million people got £300. The most vulnerable people in our communities got £300. Part of a £900 payment, they're going to get in 3 instalments. So I think the government is taking this seriously. And I'm sure the British people in October will make the right decision.
I think we can all agree on that. Maybe it's not the decision that we all agree on, but we'll make a decision here. Councillor Questions.
Under the research feedback, it says current provisions says they're going to continue to support, this is Dorset, with school holidays and half terms until the end of 2023. So we're asking for money now. Or are Dorset going to keep paying to the end of summer holidays? According to this.
The proposal before us now.
Holiday provision. This is a project name to investigate whether the council authority to support children who are receiving free school meals with supermarket vouchers during school holiday. Yes, to help address that.
Well, sorry about that. Sorry about that. It wouldn't happen the day we grow. We love it. Sorry.
So there's 2 parts to answer there. I think that Dorset Council have just announced that they're extending the scheme to 2024. But this is in addition to supplement what Dorset Council offering. Me personally, I'd like to get the money out the door as soon as I can, but it's taxpayer money, it's not our money. We have to steward it responsibly. And anecdotal evidence from Portland got people firstly saying how much difference it makes, £3 a week, and we've also got people saying, I'm really pleased to see my council tax doing some good. I've never really been sure how it helps. I know this helps. So this is separate, and this is for our consideration.
Councillor Harris.
I have a question if I may. You mentioned, Lucy, that some children who are taught in Weymouth are picking up a similar grant on Portland because Portland can, but our provision is people who live in Weymouth only.
Yeah.
So does that mean that those who live in Weymouth or those who live in Weymouth and go to school in Portland will get it twice?
No.
How do we know that?
The council, when I asked for the figures, these figures they gave me are for children that live in Weymouth and potentially or check or school. It's the ones who are live in our ward, so our postcode. If they attend school in Portland, they don't get it because they go to school in Portland. They'll get it because they have to do that. Whereas in Portland, it's the same scheme, they do the opposite. So any of their children that live in the DT5 area but attend, say, or Saints or Weymouth, they will still get it because they live in there.
They could get it twice.
No, it's down to place of residence. It's like
residence, so where you live.
Portland Town Council supports people that are resident in DT5 only. And so
they wouldn't get any of our money just because they came to us.
No.
Okay.
Our proposal for us would be to support young people that live in the Weymouth Town Council area.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm afraid I can't support this for the reason I think that we pay our taxes properly to national government to fund benefits, and I don't think it's the place of parish council to do that. If government and the electorate decide they want to increase provision of benefits, then they will no doubt adjust the tax system upwards proportionally, and we should pay for that as is right and proper. And I think it's down to national government to provide the benefit system. I just don't think it's right that parish councils should be doing this. I just think it's outside our remit to do this. It's a noble aspiration, but I do think that the benefit system that the government or any government provides is on a set criteria which is applied fairly among everybody in the country on that set criteria, and we all pay our taxes to fund that. And whilst this is a noble aspiration, I just don't think it's the role of a parish council to do that. I think that's down to local government to fund the benefit system for which we all pay.
Councillor Questions wants a word?
No.
No. Right, I need a proposition and a seconder, please. Yes,
I propose,
Councillor Frost,
I'm
second.
proposing the full amount.
Thank you. And you are putting in that, we've got a subject to being able to identify funding and then subject to full council.
And to also to identify demand, because not all schools will necessarily pick up.
Right. You understand what we're voting on? Those in favour, please show. Yeah. Those against? 4. Those abstaining? 1. Thank you very much. Okay.
We shouldn't be doing
Onwards and upwards. Councillor Kevin Brooks is going to give us a verbal update on Louvier. Has he sent a substitution? Shall we get on the date on Louvier?
We received, Chair.
No, we will, with your permission, Chair, defer that order to the next meeting.
By that time, they will have visited here, won't they?
They come on the 26th.
Okay. Vehicle update. Information on vehicle update.
Just an information.
And we look forward to receiving a report after the summer. Thank you. Actions from previous meetings. Anybody got any questions about those? Some have been completed, some are still in progress. The forward plan, which includes not only F and G, but the council, but the forward plan for F and G, 7th of June, next meeting. 19th of July. And 4th of October. Noted. Thank you. And finally, before I close the meeting, can I say, actually, could I just introduce you?
You may have items 12 and 13 just to consider quickly, which is
finance.
going to closing the meeting in terms of.
Yes. Yes. That's all right. A few others were jumping out there as well. I just want to say thank you for all you people who've been on this committee for the last year. It's been some interesting debates, some long ones, some shorter ones, but you try to behave yourself. And special thanks to Minity, I think, to David Gray, because he's led this committee for 4 years now. And I think he did even on the finance department at times, which is not really the role of the council. but he really has worked very hard and looked after these guys. So thank you for all that. And now I must propose that we move into,
Chair, can I just also thank you for making this meeting on almost as long as Councillor Gray's meeting.
well, no, I can see that I might,
Thank you.
I held it up on some of them. You did go a bit long on some as well. Right. Exclusion of press and public, under the Public Bodies Admissions to Meetings Act 1960, members of the public and press are required to leave the meeting due to the sensitive nature of the item to be considered relating to sundry debtors.
I don't think that should be sundry debtors, Chair, that should just be the.
Right, referring to the confidential item, which is mobile school application. Proposer to adjourn to confidential, Councillor Weller, seconder, Councillor Harris.
Now, I propose that we then turn up.
Oh, yes,
That's done anyway.
that's done. Those in favour, please show. Thank you.